Well, hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to Choice, Change and Action podcast. So you're with me and you're with Mr. Wesley Pullen. Welcome, Wes, all the way from Melbourne, Australia.
Hello.
And the
Thank you
crowd
for
goes
having me.
wild.
Woo!
Jazz hands. If you are just listening to us, you won't know what we're doing. But if you're watching us, you'll be able to see because jazz hands, when you put your hands up and it's like a raccoon. What is that comedian? The one who he died. Really friggin' funny. He used to be in Mork and Mindy. God, what is his name? He was in Good Morning Vietnam. Oh God, it's so there. He's like one of the best comedians in the world, but he actually committed suicide. Um, anyway, he used to talk about. You know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about?
I Googled it.
Like
He's the main
someone really,
actor, right?
yeah,
Is
someone
it
like really, like we should know it.
oh,
Anyway, you Google it.
Robin Williams, isn't it?
Yes, Robin
Yeah,
Williams.
it was on the tip of my tongues too.
Yeah, no, me too. And
People
I'm like,
listening are going to be like, "Are you silly?"
yeah, I know exactly. It's like Robin Williams, he's an icon, and he is an icon. But he used to tell this story about raccoons, and that's where I got this from. You may never know this because I always go jazz hands and put my hands up. And if you're not watching, like I said, hands are by the face, right? So you're like jazz hands. But here's the other way that you can look at it is he used to say that the raccoons, because he lived in California, that the raccoons were outside, and he'd be like turn the lights out when the raccoons were at the garbage bin or something, like the trash can. And the raccoons would like put their hands up, and he said he always felt like the raccoons were going jazz hands. And then the first time I was living in Santa Barbara, California, and there's a whole lot of animals that obviously are in California that I don't have in Australia, and two of them that I'll never forget was the first time I saw a raccoon who was in our trash can and like picking out some chicken skeleton, or something like that. And I looked out and I thought about that with Robin Williams going jazz hands, and when I saw this raccoon. And the second animal I ever saw, I was on a couch. It was in Santa Barbara. I'm on a couch, and there's this whole big glass windows. And so on the outside, up along the glass window, comes a skunk. And I was like, oh my God, it's Pepe Le Pew. Did you ever watch Pepe Le Pew? It was a
No, I
cartoon.
didn't.
It was the cartoon, and he was French, and his name was Pepe Le Pew. But I was like, it's Pepe Le Pew, like my first skunk that I ever saw, just going along this, this ceiling and the thing. So anyway, it's interesting when you get introduced to different things throughout different, that you don't grow up with. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden it's like, that's the difference. So there we go. Jazz hands. That's where I actually got that from, because I say it a lot. So anyway, we are not here today to talk about the icon Robin Williams. He was amazing. Or jazz hands. We are here to talk about business. And Wes is in Melbourne, Australia, from South Africa, born in South Africa. And I am currently at home in Peregian Beach. And really, it's so funny here today because there's a little bit of wind and it's a beautiful day, and everybody is planning for a cyclone. Like we have these warnings of Cyclone Arthur, and it's so funny. I mean, I get that they have to do it. Like, the different real estates I'm involved in, like I'm getting emails after email of like what you have to do. People started going to, I don't understand this. People started going to the supermarket yesterday, and apparently they're sold out of toilet paper. I'm like, why do people go and buy toilet paper?
That
when
is
there's
such an Australian thing.
I
It's
know.
Australian. They're like, oh, a pandemic. Let's buy all the toilet paper.
Let's buy all the
Like,
toilet paper.
Don't worry about food or something. We worry about like shitting ourselves and not having enough toilet paper to wipe.
I know. So anyway, I think that it's going to be okay. I say this now, and I'm bringing everything in from outside because I live right across the road from the beach. That ocean is wild at the moment. It's so awesome to watch. I love it. I love a good storm. So, but I also want to be able to fly to Melbourne on Thursday for Dane's ESB.
Yes.
So by the time this podcast is launched, we'll know, was there a cyclone that hit us, or did I get to Melbourne? We'll know the answer to that. So Wes was talking about asking me some questions about business. And I'm sure all of the listeners out there know that one of the first books that I ever wrote was core joy of business, basically because I think business is something that you can explore. There's no end to it, and I don't think there's a place. I think a good person in business never gets to a point where they go, oh, I know it, I get it, because I don't. I every day I'm like, wow, what's this? How does this work? Where can we go from here? And I think business is so malleable, and you should never function from a conclusion in business, because there's always a different possibility, and there's always, a different perspective and a different way to look at your current business project, etc. And for me, it's very exciting, hence the joy. So there you go. That's my long introduction, covering a lot of different things, including Robin Williams. Where's?
Well, I mean, my sort of idea for this podcast today was kind of, number one, do a little bit of a hijack and take over and ask you a couple questions about you and your business and basically your life and how it's evolved with business. Also, because we talk about you every day and these stories are so natural to us all the time, but there's so many people who don't know these stories about you and that haven't heard these things before. So I was like, what can I ask Simone to really get out all the nitty gritties for everybody to know and for everybody to hear? So, I mean, my first question, here we go, drum roll, is actually going to take you all the way back and ask you, like, what actually sparked your interest in business, and like, what were some early experiences that maybe shaped your journey into business, or your realization that you like business?
So that's funny that the questions that you asked and in that order, because the realization that I liked business wasn't even a concept to me. I always designed to choose what I enjoyed, and it never made sense to me if you chose something and you didn't enjoy it, which probably drove my parents crazy, because I will say that they were very good at taking me to everything. Like, I learned the piano, I learned drums, I did ballet, I did fizzy, I did hockey, I did netball, I did basketball. Like I did all these different things, like continuously, because I would like to try it. And then when I was done, I was done. And I remember my mother always used to go to me, if you quit this now, you can't start it again. And I was like, okay, that's fine, because I'm done. I did it. I don't really like it that much. Let's go. Let's move on. I want to do this now. And I was always looking for something else, which is interesting too, because I did go for a job interview many years later, after I'd done a billion different things. And I happened to know the guy. He was a family friend. And he said to me, Simone, do you realize how bad your resume looks? And I said, what do you mean? And he went, you haven't stuck to anything. And he goes, but let me guess. He said, you get a job, you learn everything, you do everything, and you get bored and you're done and you want to move on. And I was like, yeah, you get me. So I was grateful that he saw it in a different way as well. Like, hey, because most people will go, oh, you can't make up your mind, you're being fickle. But I was just so enthused and excited about all these different things that I could try and that were available to me, from sport to, different jobs to all of this. So I think that's the way I looked at everything from a really early age. And as you also asked me that question, I can recall at high school when you get to that certain age, I think it's about 16, and they start, looking at you with this serious look, going, you have to choose the final subjects in high school that are going to create the rest of your life. And I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like,
like a life or
I have no
death
idea
choice.
what that is. Yeah. What do you want to do? And I remember sitting in this room, and they went around the room, and they were basically like, what's your future? What's your future? And people were like, I'd like to study medicine. I'd like to study law. And I was like, and I literally said, I want to travel around the world and own my own business. And the teachers, of course, were like, here we go again, So I don't think it was.
That must have been especially taboo, like when you were in school. I mean, in today's world, it's a lot more accepted to want to have your own business and do things like that. But when you were a pioneer of doing that.
Yeah, and it's true, Wes. And I remember this sense of, I want to say, feeling lonely or excluded. Like, there was a moment that I went, oh, wow, nobody gets me. Like, nobody gets what I'm talking about. And I also, believe it or not, for those of you who know me, I also remember thinking, oh, I need to shut up. I need to stop talking about what it is I want to choose, and just choose it. And it was probably about the same time that I was like, nothing made sense to me. Like I went to a girls' private school in Sydney, Australia. I mean, it was actually a pretty cool school. Like I had made some great friends, and it was. I have no regrets of anything of that, except it was this like molding you into the next thing. And I was like, I have no idea what that is. Like I remember the day I finished my final exam, and I did so badly in my higher school certificate, and I just wanted to get out of there. And I finished my final exam, and we were in Sydney, Australia, in King's Cross. And if any of you guys know King's Cross in Sydney, it's like the area where all the sex workers are, and lots of dodgy nightclubs and all this sort of stuff. And that was, we'd be walking down the street, Macleay Street, in our school uniform, and everyone knows the Binnies girls, as you call it. But I was also 18, and I was able to go to the pub. So as soon as I finished my last exam, there was a bunch of us, and we just went to the bar, and I'd never felt so free in my life. Like sitting in this bar, just having a drink in the afternoon, just going, fuck yeah, I finished high school. Now what? And I knew I didn't want to lock anything in. So the first thing I did was I started getting different jobs, and I started just working as much as I could. I was smart enough to know that I got a job working Saturday and Sunday and Saturday night, because I knew if I did that, then I wouldn't go spend money. So I was trying to save money. I just knew I wanted to go overseas. So
You tricked
there was
yourself
that
into saving money.
yeah, I know. There was that aspect of trying to find myself and the freedom. And then I guess from an early age too, one of the first jobs I ever had was doing bookkeeping for my father. He was a chartered accountant, and old school. If anyone knows about this, old school, like nothing was on the computers. It was, you had these big ledgers, and I would work for him, and I'd go in there, and one of his clients would have all these receipts, and you'd have to handwrite the date, what the receipt was for, etc., and put it under a column, like was it, administration or gas in petrol or something like that, and you'd have to put it under there. And then you'd have to cross add it all on an old adding machine, like not anything, automatic. And then you'd be like 1 cent out, and you'd have to go back and find that whole 1 cent.
Nightmare.
But Dad taught me to do that, and I hated it. Like I hated it, but I was earning a certain amount per hour. And for me, I want a new bikini. So I would earn that amount, and then I'd get a new bikini, and then I'd be like, bye, and I'd be out of there. But I will say, in hindsight, it was so good for me to learn how to do bookwork, and he taught me how to read a profit and loss statement. Like that was one of the things he said to me, Simone, you've got to be able to read a profit and loss. You don't need to be able to do it. You don't have to do it. You've got people you can hire for that, but learn how to read it. So that was very early on sort of lesson, I guess, I had, showing me a different side of business.
Yeah. Well, with that, like what was actually your first business that you started?
This is the only question that you pinged to me before we did this podcast. Like, I don't know what questions Wes has, and it was the only one. And I was in the shower going, what was my first business? And I couldn't quite remember. I'm pretty sure I did something that was, I remember that was the first job I had. I remember the second job I had. I was making sandwiches in this cafe, and I don't know why, but we had to make all these ham sandwiches. Like but we were supplying them for offices and things like that too. And I was so excited and thrilled, and I was making like hundreds of ham sandwiches. But as I was making them, I was like, I think I got paid like $200 a week. It was a part-time job. I remember thinking, oh my God, at the end of the week, I'm going to have $200 for making ham sandwiches. That is so much money. What am I going to be able to do with $200? Now I'm like, are you kidding me? $200 a week.
Yeah.
So I remember that, but the energy of knowing that if I put the work in, here's the money that can show up, and then it's my choice what I can choose to do with this money. So I do recall that. Now, I would say one of the first businesses, and I could be wrong here, would be working at the markets in Sydney, in Glebe Street Fair and also Bondi Beach markets. I used to I used to do different things. I did everything from friggin' making candles, you know, and selling candles, or I would make, you know, which would probably be highly illegal if you look at it now, but I was making like, you know, spritzers for the face, or bubble bath. Like I would look up all of these different recipes, and I would go and get the containers and get all the stuff, and I'd put it together, and I'd spend hours and days making all this stuff and then packing my car up at, you know, 3 a.m. in the morning to go set up at the markets, and working literally 2 days a week at the market, Saturday, Sunday. But I really liked it. I liked the freedom it gave me. And I met a lot of people, like a lot of people. And then I started exploring, how do I expand this business? I mean, one of the things which I write about in Joy Business Book is, you know, I wanted to go to Mardi Gras in Sydney, and I had no money. But I was like, I'm not going to sit at home and just complain about having no money. And going to Mardi Gras is a lot of money because of all the parties, and I was taking drugs at that stage. So all of that, everything that costs you to go and have a good time at Mardi Gras, and it goes for like a week, right, if not more. And so, but I was like, well, I'm not going to sit at home and complain. I'm going to do something about it. So a friend of mine and I, we got all these different, again, I had my supplier of like all the tubs, and we got these little plastic tubs, and we bought all this glitter. And again, we bought this gel, like it probably was horrible, but we bought this gel and put all this glitter in there, and made all these different colors. Like my kitchen had so much glitter all over it. And then we walked up and down Oxford Street, and I had this big basket, and I was like, we'd yell out and say, glitter for $5, hugs for free, glitter for $5, hugs for free. So we met so many people, and we actually got some free invites to parties from people, because there's drag queens walking up the street just being like, ah, you know, and hugging us, and then, you know, buying glitter and everything. And we made so much money on selling glitter at that stage. I'm going to say so much money, but it was enough to go out and party and have, you know, more money than we thought we could actually make. So, and I think that's been a big drive of mine from the beginning of don't wait, create.
Simone, you have like a really good knack for finding a product or taking an idea and turning it into a revenue stream that can support you to create another revenue stream over here that supports another revenue stream over here. And now my whole idea is now like you speaking about like selling glitter and taking the gel and mixing it with the glitter. How did you stumble across like making a product, selling it, and then you created a whole business from that too, which was Good Vibes for You? How did you step into Good Vibes for You?
So Good Vibes for You was a business that I had before Access, and that was more a concept than the products. It was, for me, you know, again, like when I was about 16, I was like, this is not making any sense. This is not making any sense. You know, being in that room where they're like, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I was like, I don't know, you know. And I was like, there's got to be something different out there in this a big, amazing world. I had such a desire to see the world too. And so for me, and I could see people just doing trauma and drama and being mean to each other and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, there has to be something different. So for me, I was like, well, what if it also started with me and what I put out there into the world with business, you know? And I read all of the, you know, God, I can't remember them all now, but, you know, like Wayne Dwyer and all these different people. I read all these, like had so many spiritual books and everything. And a lot of it, I was like, this is really cool. And some of it was frustrating, because it was like, how do I get there? Like, what do I need to, you know, didn't seem to be a tool. It was just like, just do it, you know. And I was like, yeah, okay, I need a bit of help here. Like, what else? And then I wanted to change. I literally wanted to change the world and change the way people look at each other and the way they were with each other. And, you know, I mean, there's so many different things I did. I went backpacking for quite a few years. And one of the things in London, I used to ride on the big double-decker bus because, again, I had hardly any money. And I lived in a house with 3 bedrooms with 21 people and 1 bathroom. So, yeah, it was quite full on. And there was only 3 girls. But that meant I actually got looked after. Like they looked after me. It was really cool. Lots of South Africans, actually. And but to sort of have my own space, one of the things I would do is either go to Hyde Park to Speaker's Corner on a Sunday and just listen to people get on their soapbox, or ride across the London buses, and I would write and I would write and I would write and I would write. And I wrote this huge, I kept writing on vulnerability, because vulnerability was something that just so pinged me. When I saw that people were vulnerable, what it created, and how you could create a difference in the world or with another being, right, with another person. So I wrote all of this, and then I had this I actually was in Camden Markets, and I saw a very famous musician, and she had a T-shirt on, and to this day I cannot remember what it said on it, but it was really derogatory. And I remember thinking, God, how many people have looked at you today and read that T-shirt, and it's got this derogatory comment. You have the power and the potency to put something else on that would inspire. And that was the moment that I went, what could I create that could inspire others to choose something different, to be more of them, to have kindness in their heart, to be vulnerable, to be trusting of each other, like all of that. And so that's when I started writing down all these different concepts. And I literally, I met people all over the world, like everywhere. And as I spoke to them, I used to have notebooks, and I would write down different things that they would say that was inspiring to me. So all of those quotes that I had were from people. Like there's one I remember very clearly. There was this Israeli guy in Nepal and Kathmandu. He was freaking so cool. He was so sexy and handsome and just cool, like so many of the Israelis are. They just like got this strength, this fortitude that they function from. And my friend and I went to this yoga camp, and we hated it. It was so horrible. It was like a prison, and we actually escaped at like 3:00 in the morning and got our stuff and escaped. And we didn't know quite where we were. We were outside of Kathmandu, and we hitched a ride with on the back of a cart that had all this hay in it, with this guy who it was two not cows, bullocks driving the cart. And we were like Kathmandu, and he didn't really speak much English, and we knew it was heading in the same direction. So, and we were in the back of this cart rolling around the hay, just like so happy we escaped this yoga camp. And by the time we got back to Kathmandu and got back to the youth hostel, I ran into him again, and he was like, I thought you guys were supposed to be gone. And we told him the story, and he was like, you guys are crazy. He said, look, it's really simple how you should live life. And I was like, what's that? And he said, if you feel good, you are good. If you feel bad, change it. And I was like, that was gold. And that was one of my best-selling T-shirts, stickers, magnets that I had, and Good Vibes for You. And for me, it just had this energy coming from him that I went, God, it's so correct. We complicate things all the time. And yet, if you feel good, you are good. If you feel bad, change it. Do something to change it, So, God, there were so many different people that I met all around the world that inspired me with Good Vibes for You. And it was essentially about, changing the world and creating a difference.
Would you say that demand in your world and that request to change the world and inspire people is what led you to Access Consciousness?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. One of the things I was doing was Mind, Body, and Spirit festivals. I did the whole, all the festivals. Gosh, at one stage I was doing, I don't think they even exist now, all the big day out music festivals, Livid festivals, Byron Bay, Blues Festival, and I did all the Mind, Body, and Spirit festivals, Woodford Folk Festival. I did all of them to sell merchandise, etc., which I ended up actually doing merchandise for some musicians as well. And, that was leading me to something much bigger. But at that time I had come across Access Consciousness. And I remember a musician friend of mine said to me, hey, how do you like being on tour? And I went, And I was like, I don't mind being on tour. But I looked at him and I said, I think I want to be on tour with something else, with and I had these access all areas, AAA passes to pretty much anywhere I wanted to go. And I was living the life that I thought I wanted. And when I was there, you could go backstage, you could go into clubs, you could do anything. I went, this is not giving me what it is that I'm actually after. It was great. I met some really cool people, and I'm very grateful for everything that occurred. but it wasn't matching the energy of what it is that I knew that I wanted to do and be in the world. So with Access Consciousness, I actually met a facilitator at a Mind, Body and Spirit festival. And, I remember walking around this festival and he was really cute. And I will say I was very shallow. I was like, I'll talk to this guy. He's really cute. And that's what attracted me. But hey, you know what? There you go. And he had this bowl and it had all these questions in it. And he said, hey, pick a question. And I did. And it said, who does it belong to? And so he started talking to me about this tool of who does it belong to. I mean, now I look at that and it's like, I know what that tool is. And at the time I was like, what the fuck? What does this mean? Who does this belong to? And he was describing it to me. So if you guys don't know, I will describe it to you, is asking the question of who does this belong to for every single thought, feeling and emotion that shows up for you. And you ask, who does this belong to? Because let's use, you get stressed or you get frantic. Let's use, there's a cyclone maybe coming. Well, there is a cyclone. It exists. We just don't know if it's going to hit the shores. But it's very interesting to see how people are reacting. And some people are, like I said, buying toilet paper and going and buying water. That's another thing. Filling the bath up, like all this stuff. And I said to my PT this morning, because both of us are like, man, I think we're going to be fine. And I was like, but are we going to be telling this story next week and going, damn, we should have brought water and filled up the bathtub, So, but I think people react to something rather than actually go with what they're aware of, right? And what are you aware of? And then who does it belong to? You pick up on all of these, thoughts, feelings, and emotions of other people, and they're not yours. Like perhaps you're not the one that's stressed. Perhaps you're not the one that's upset. Perhaps you're not the one that's frantic. So as you ask that question, and if it lightens up, it's not yours. But it made no sense to me, this tool. And anyway, I ended up he was actually very good looking, but he was a really cool guy. And like just the conversations, I hadn't had conversations like that before. And I was like, who is this person? And so I went to an intro night that he did, which I was the only person who showed up to, by the way. And I was like, what the hell is this? And then I was super busy with work. Like we were towards the end of the year. I had so many festivals on. So I had Access sitting there and I knew about it, but I didn't follow through with anything because I was just super busy. And so I was at another Mind, Body and Spirit festival, and that's where I met Gary Douglas, the founder. And I didn't know about bars. I didn't know about a lot of the things. And I knew who he was, and he walked around the corner with this friend of mine, a guy I'd met. And I got introduced to him. And, he hugged me and I hugged him and I pulled back. And he said to me, hey, you'd be a lot better off with everything if you were open to receiving. And I had no idea. I was like, this guy is just crazy. I had no idea. He has no idea what's going on in my life, because I just had this friend of mine who died. She got bitten by a mosquito in Bali and died within 3 days. And I was so pissed off at the world and just angry. So that's how I met Gary. And then I ended up getting my bars run then too. But he tells the story from his side of getting introduced to me and looking at my stand that was just colors. Like my whole logo was this big rainbow color, good vibes for you, right? And I've got all these T-shirts and I've got these stickers in these magnets with all of these amazing sayings on them, And he said he walked around and he was like, wow, who's this person? He was like, I want to know more about her too. So I was just looking at it as one-sided. So years later, it's interesting to see his side of it as well. So yeah, and then going to classes, etc. And here I am today, 24 years later.
Well, you actually went on to be the worldwide coordinator of Access Consciousness.
I did.
And I wanted to ask you, I don't think I've ever asked you this question. I mean, I've heard via, but what was it like when you first started out as the worldwide coordinator versus where you ended up?
Well, okay, so I was worldwide coordinator for 18 years, and we were in 4 countries when I first started. And I made a judgment and a conclusion to myself that I would never work for anyone. I don't know why. I don't know. I made that really earlier on. I was just like, I don't want to work for anyone ever again. I always want to work for myself. So with that limitation in place, it was hard to work for Access, to tell you the truth, because Gary, I could see things that they required, and I had my business, etc. And I mean, they didn't even have an email when I came along. So I started a Hotmail address. I mean, this is back when you didn't have, all this data, legal stuff and everything like that. And, you'd go to a class, and what we used to do was write names and email addresses down, and, and then I would type it out and we'd give it out to everybody. Like, that's when the days when that wasn't illegal. But we didn't have any, and I was like, how does everybody know when classes are on? And they're like, oh, it's just word of mouth, I was like, we should gather people's details so that we can actually email them and say, hey, this is on, and just start that base sort of thing. So I started a Hotmail address because I thought, well, I can hand over a Hotmail address easy and I can just leave. I was always looking for, when am I leaving? Like, I will help you, but when am I leaving? Because it didn't match what I had concluded that I was never going to work for anyone. And so I really struggled with it, Wes. I remember this one day, Gary took me out to lunch and he was talking to me about different things that he required. And he said, I need someone like you in America. And I said, what do you need? And he's got a slightly different story to this, which is interesting, but I'll tell it the way I remember it. And I was like, I could do that. I could help with that. But I've got my own business. So I was sort of looking at this as like, I can help you on the sidelines, but I have my own business. Don't forget I have my own business. Like, I'd made that so important to me. And, skip probably like a year later when they came out to Australia again. And by that time, I was so interested in Access. All the tools I was using were working. And I was like, God, this is exactly what I wanted to create in my business. Like this energy of inspiring people and getting people to realize that they could have anything that they desired. They have to choose it, And I had started to let my business go a little bit. And because I was spending a lot of time on doing Access stuff. And then I remember Gary standing in my warehouse in Albion in Brisbane. And he said to me, you do realize you don't have to destroy a business in order to start another one, right? And I looked at him and I was like, I honestly felt like I'd been caught out. Because what I had done so often was create a business. It was making money. I was maintaining it, and then I was bored, so I would destroy it. And I'd go, see, the business failed. Now I have to start something different, And I would use that as a justification. And over the years of doing many classes and private sessions, that is a very familiar point of view that a lot of people have. So I'm just saying, if you're listening to this out there, you do not need to destroy a business in order to start another one. But what I had to start looking at was I was more interested in Access, and I actually wanted to work with Access. And so he took me out to lunch and started talking to me about like how I, do you want to work with us? And he had a conversation with me about commitment for like at least an hour, because I was like, I don't want to commit to you. And he was like, what do you think happens if I commit to you? And I was like, I don't have choice anymore. And he was like, okay. And he was like, what if you, always have choice? Every day you have choice. And it's, it's more about committing to me, not to him or to Access. And it's a tool that I've taken with me forever. For me, I need to wake up in the morning and just check in with myself and make sure that I'm actually choosing for me too. And as I choose for me, I get that it includes a hell of a lot of other people or projects or businesses, etc. But not to lose that place where I'm like, does this still work for me? And I mean, it does so much. But in every area of my life, I would like to always be in question of, does this actually work for me today? And if not, then what do I need to change or navigate or pivot, or, what else can I add in here or move away or whatever, so that it matches this. And I know I've said this a few times, it matches this energy of creating and generating something different in the world, because that has been my desire from a really young age. So, and it's changed over the years, definitely. But there's something that has no words. The best words I would say is more consciousness on the planet, waking up and fucking being happy, man. Is
Yeah.
enjoying your choices like that. And so that's sort of imperative to me, just to check in every now and then and go, okay, are you still enjoying your choices? So yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you don't use it as a conclusion. What you mentioned there, and I think like everyone should listen to that part again, is you said, does this still work for me? If not, what can I change or what can I pivot? It's not like, does this still work for me? No, well, kill it. It's like
Yeah.
that opened a door for you to ask another question. And that's, I feel like, the key point there in that whole thing.
Well,
Yeah.
if I yeah, because I know people do this either or thing, and it's not zeros and ones, it's not binary encoding, it's not black and white, it's not that. It's like your life is not like that, right? It's more of an ecosystem that is so friggin', got so much going on. And so in relationship, that's a really important key question to ask, I think, in relationships too, in everything. But I can just think of this one example in my last long-term relationship. I remember asking, like, hey, is this still working for me? And I got this, no, this is not working for me. And I was like, okay, what's not working? And it was to do with the finances. And I remember going, okay, what do I need to change here? And I was like, so I ended up talking to my partner and I said, hey, I need help. I need you to have a look at the finances and see what's going on so that you can also contribute to what we are financially. So it wasn't like, this is not working, I'm done, I'm out of here. It's, no, this is not working, but I can have a conversation with this person and invite them to something different to see, are they actually interested in looking at the finances? Number one, I don't know. It's like, I haven't asked them yet. So let's ask them. So I think it's important to be in that question so that you can have some conversations and see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good example, actually, because I think that's a very relatable encounter in a lot of relationships for people is finances.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
know. God, that's you know what? We should do a podcast on that at some point.
We should. The next one's about relationships. Everyone get ready.
Yeah. Relationships and finances. They are like, they're
Yeah.
two things that most people don't want to put in the same basket, but it's I mean, there's some great tools that you can use with that as well. Like, and just quickly, there's one tool that is one of my favorites that we introduced. Was when we got really weirded out or funky about money, what we did was we created a not like a date night, it was a date night about finances. So we would pick a good restaurant that we both liked and get like a nice bottle of wine, order some nice food and go, okay, the conversation is about finances. But we would like celebrate talking about it rather than just, slamming shit down or doors and this isn't work, whatever. It's like, no, let's have a look. What are we looking at? Where are we at currently? What would we like to choose? What works for you? What works for me? Because what works for one couple doesn't necessarily work for another.
Yeah.
You need to work out what actually works. So yeah, let's do the podcast on that one day.
Yes. Now, I wanted to bounce back to another topic quick, was when you mentioned you don't have to destroy another business to start another one.
Yeah.
You are involved in a lot of different businesses. I mean, you have the antique store, you have investment properties, you have a car, you have access consciousness, your own business, and multiple things. And with involvement in so many different businesses, how do you know where to put your attention?
A question that I ask every day, and it actually pops up on my phone. And I want to say recently I really got this question in a different way, was asking, where is my energy required today? And asking from that. And I also want to say, just because you have a lot of businesses or projects going on, you've also got to know when it's time to call it quits on some of them. Like, we are about to, I think by the time this podcast goes out, we would have announced it, is Antiques and Possibilities, which is one of the antique stores that we have up here in Pridgeon Beach. And Christopher Hughes is my business partner in that. We're closing it down and we're having this massive like liquidation sale that will go on for about 6 weeks. And I think it's starting on the 12th of March. And it was interesting because it wasn't really working that well. Every now and then every time we spoke about it and went, do I still want to do this business? We'd start getting more sales and we'd go, oh, okay. And Chris and I were both so busy that we were like, let's just if it's going, it's going, you know. And then I learned something is the building that the shop is in got sold recently, and the owners, they want it back, you know. And I was like, God, it really is a good move to buy some commercial property, and especially if you have a business in it, because this business has been going since 2020. Now, if that was my sole business and I was relying on it, I'd be screwed right now. I wouldn't be screwed, but I would have to look at, oh, wow, I have to move the whole shop. I have to relocate. I have to do all of this. Whereas they pinged us and said, hey, are you guys willing to get out of your lease early? And it's sort of like it pulled the plug out of the bath sort of thing. The water starts to drain because you're like, well, we've got another year, but what have we got another year for? Like, let's choose something different. So we did choose to shut it down. And so, you know, we are shutting it down. So I think sometimes, and we've still got the antique shops in Brisbane, and I think it's time you need to look at all your businesses and have a look. Is this actually, again, is this still working? And it's like, is there something we need to change with this? You know, bricks and mortar business is a hard gig nowadays, because I mean, even myself, it's like I shop all the time online. It's, you know, some of my favorite clothing stores, I try and literally go into their shop. There's one in Noosa called RJ, AGE, really beautiful clothes. And I can buy their clothes online because I know what size I am. And yet I try and make the effort to go into their actual bricks and mortar shop so I can also support that. And the same as, you know, shopping in James Street in Brisbane is one of my favorite places to shop. And again, I will try and go into the shops to support it. And I think it's really important, Wes, that if you do enjoy something, keep that flow going, like keep that cash flow going. Don't, you know, the only reason why we have these friggin' financial crisis is because everyone starts to freak out. There's that question, who does it belong to? And starts to hold on to their money rather than actually, you know, using their money and having this flow. Like businesses become successful by their clients, you know, paying for stuff, for it's a service or a product, etc. And if we just keep that flow going, then that's when we generate a really different possibility on the planet.
Everyone keeping the flow going.
Yeah.
Don't throw your boulders in the river.
Don't what? Sorry.
Don't throw your boulders in the river to stop the flow. Like,
don't throw your boulders in the river. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So, and with Antiques and Possibilities coming to the end of its chapter for you, are there any other like ventures that you're involved in at the moment that you're excited to launch or create? Or
look, I have one of the businesses. It's funny, I usually have someone on my desk here, but I don't have it. Is the intimate play cards, which I created, which has been a whole different ball game. So intimate play cards was created with a friend of mine, and it was basically we have soft play and hard play in these deck of cards, and it's to get intimate with your lover. And you know, how many times do you hook up with someone and then you have sex and it's sort of, you might have good sex, it might be slow, fast, whatever, but then it's sort of like it's over, rather than having this deck of cards that you get to play, you know, make a cocktail, play for hours, you know, like enjoy the anticipation and all that sort of stuff. So we created these cards, and now they're translated, I think, into 6 or 7 languages. But the thing that we hit, which you've helped us with, Wes, is we went, wow, the systems to get these out there to the world, because we're realizing that there was really no place that did this print on demand for these cards. So we started getting them printed in all these different areas. So now we're actually going to have, I think, towards the end of March, we'll have on the intimateplaycards.com, we'll be able to have that you can order them from America or Australia, and we'll send directly from those 2 places, and we'll see how that goes. But here's the thing. Okay, I think the cards are awesome. I love personally playing them. Sometimes we only get through 1 card. Sometimes it's more, but that's the whole idea. It's like play. But what I'd like to do with that is we've got some other ideas, and one of them I'd like to have is this intimate conversations with friends. Like, because let's stop talking about boring shit. Let's actually, what are you inspired by? You know, and there could be sex questions on there. It doesn't have to be, but it's more like, what makes you tick? You know, what makes you happy? Like, and start having this conversation. So once those systems are set up in that business, I would like to create some more products that we have in that. So that's one thing. But I will say access consciousness is vast. It is huge. And there's so many different topics that I facilitate personally. there's like a never ending, a range of what I can do and be with that, which I really like. So that is definitely my priority, is access consciousness. I mean, I'm my priority, but I choose access consciousness. And so with that, I will do everything I can to explode that into the world so every single person in the world knows it exists. But there's books that I'm working on, different things like that. Elugar, the resort. Oh my goodness. I was there a month in February and my whole life changed. My body changed. It was just incredible. That place is absolutely magical. So it's 60% built. It's open. You can go there. It's brilliant. My horse is there. I'll be back. But I would like to really contribute to what I can be to get that absolutely finished and just having it be the world know that place exists. So I guess they're the things that are on the top of my priority list at the moment. And I'm always open for infinite possibilities.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I mean, my last question for you before we end off, and maybe if you have anything else to say, but with all the things and businesses that you've been involved in with your life, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe just starting out in business, or thinking of, they have an idea, or they literally haven't done anything before? What would you tell them?
Okay, so, and it's going to sound a little bit pessimistic to start, but bear with me. I would say write down 10 things of why you think you can't do this business. Like literally write them down. Get it old school, pen and paper, and write them down of why you think you cannot do this business, okay? Then the next day or an hour later or something, or grab a friend that's not going to align and agree with you, is actually going to ask you some questions, and look at each one. Is this true? Just because this doesn't exist or I don't have this, can I still actually start this business? Because over the years, Wes, I see people have all these reasons and justifications for why they can't do something rather than look at that everything is possible. I mean, if you look at who the hell has a business card anymore, like they're around, but hardly anyone. But that used to be the thing. Oh, I need a business card. I can't start until I have a business card. And then it was, I can't start until I have a website, and then I can't start until, and it's like, so that I can't start until list, have a look at it, and then start going through that list and going, this is bullshit. I'm lying to myself. Like, do you actually really want to create it? And money is another thing. Like, I remember asking someone one day, she was like, oh, well, I need the money to start. And I was like, how much money? And she hadn't even looked at it. And then she was like, oh, probably $1,000. And I was like, what would you do with $1,000? And she was like, this, and this. And I was like, so why can't you do this, and this now? You actually don't need money to do this, and this. And there's so many ways that you can invite money or invite contribution. Like, you could invite someone to help you with the business, whether it's admin, bookkeeping, marketing, or something like that. And what if you paid them in a different way? What if you paid them in commission or something? Like, people always will come up with a reason, justification for why they can't. I say, stop it and stop lying to yourself and ask, what can I do today? What action can I take today that would allow this to actualize?
That's so true. Like, I mean, if we look at your newest business venture with the cards, like, imagine if you had waited and didn't sell a single deck, even just in English, until you had them translated in all the languages, the ability to sell them online, the website and everything finished, and you completely waited for everything. Like, you did the systems first and created later. That business, we wouldn't be anywhere near where you are with it today.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you for pointing that out, Wes. Like, it's chaos. We instilled chaos.
Yeah.
But I was like,
But I think that's one of the things I've learned from you and that we've done together in your business is always create first, systems later. Like, don't try to figure out the system first. That will come and you will see what's required when it's required, always.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we even have them in Russian now on my Russian Telegram. I'm selling them. It's like that. I mean, and can I say, Russia is an interesting place to be. I mean, last time I was there's like 8,000 and counting sanctions. There's a lot of things that getting into Russia is not easy, but we've done it. It's like even getting my Getting Out of Debt Joyfully book and Audible, like we've just kept going, asking questions because there's so many things, platforms that are not available in Russia. So now we have like I don't even know the tech side of it, but we do have it available in Russia now. They're getting out of debt joyfully because we kept asking questions and we kept going, well, what else? We can't do that. What else can we do? Like, what else? What else? Who else can we talk to?
Not taking no for an answer. And we didn't
No.
wait for the system. We launched your book, the audiobooks in Russia, the way we'd launched every other audiobook. And then we realized, oh shit, this doesn't work in Russia. So
no one can buy them.
Yeah. And we launched it. We sent emails to everyone. And we got all these replies. I can't buy this book. And we're like, oh shit, we didn't think about this. But then we created the systems later. If we had waited to create all, we wouldn't have discovered any of that. So
no. And actually, that's a really key thing, Wes. Yeah, is you discover it. You know, you don't just What if you knew nothing and you knew everything? You know, but you allowed that exploration and the discovery of what next.
Yeah, totally. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, Simone, this has been one of my favorite podcasts we've recorded together so far. And thank you for letting me hijack it.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on here. I look forward to seeing you in Melbourne.
Yes. Well,
because I am flying to Melbourne. I am.
Yes.
Cyclone Alfred will not stop me.
Yeah.
It's so funny because the day is beautiful. The sun is out, the sky is blue, and they're like, yep, it's hitting. We're like, okay, yep. Anyway, thank you so much, Wes. I adore you. Thank you for being here. And thank you, everybody else, for being here and listening. And please, can you do us a favor and subscribe? Join us on Instagram, on the Choice Change in Action Instagram. Slide into our DMs if you want me to talk about something in particular. You know, I'm up for anything. And just thank you for being here and thank you for being loyal. I know there's a lot of people who have listened to this podcast right from the beginning, and I'm really grateful when I get your feedback, because we record this and it's me and Wes, you know, even though we're tapping into everybody else listening to it in the future, it's me and Wes. So when I do get feedback, I read them all and I'm super grateful. So thank you so much to all of you for being here. Thanks, Wes.
Thank you
See
so
you next
much.
time.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye.